In this video, you are going to learn English through a true and extraordinary story. Today's story is about Violet Jessop, a woman whose life became connected with three of the most famous ships in history. She survived the collision of the Olympic, the sinking of the Titanic, and the destruction of the Britannic during World War I. Because of these incredible experiences, many people later called her Miss Unsinkable. As you listen to this story, you will improve your English while discovering one of the most remarkable survival stories ever told. If you enjoy learning English through true stories, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and support my work on Ko-fi. The link is in the description below. Now, let's begin the story. Violet Constance Jessop was born on October 2, 1887, near the city of Bahia Blanca in Argentina. Her parents were Irish immigrants who had moved to South America to raise sheep and build a better life for their family. Violet was the oldest of 9 children, and from a young age she learned the importance of responsibility. Life on the family farm was not easy. The children helped with daily chores, and everyone was expected to work hard. When Violet was still a child, she became seriously ill with tuberculosis. At that time, tuberculosis was a very dangerous disease, and many people did not survive it. Doctors told her family that her chances were very small. However, Violet slowly recovered. Her survival was considered almost miraculous, and the experience may have given her an early understanding of how fragile life can be. A few years later, tragedy struck again when her father died. Without his income, the family faced financial difficulties. Violet's mother decided to move to England, where she hoped to find better opportunities. She found work as a ship stewardess, serving passengers on large ocean liners that traveled between Europe and America. When Violet was in her early 20s, her mother became ill and could no longer work regularly. Violet realized that she needed to help support the family. She applied for the same kind of job, but at first the shipping companies were hesitant to hire her. She was young, attractive, and well-spoken, and some employers worried that passengers might pay too much attention to her. To appear older and more professional, Violet wore plain clothes, avoided fashionable styles, and behaved very seriously during interviews. Eventually, she was hired by the famous Royal Mail Line, and later by the White Star Line, one of the most prestigious shipping companies in the world. The White Star Line operated some of the largest and most luxurious ships ever built. For a young woman from a struggling immigrant family, it was an extraordinary opportunity. Working as a stewardess was much harder than many people imagine. Violet had to wake up early, clean cabins, carry luggage, serve meals, answer passengers' questions, and remain polite even when people were rude or demanding. The days were long, and the work was physically exhausting. However, Violet was intelligent, organized, and calm under pressure, and she quickly gained a reputation as a reliable member of the crew. In 1911, Violet was assigned to the Olympic, the newest and largest passenger ship in the world. The Olympic was a symbol of modern engineering. It was enormous, luxurious, and equipped with the latest technology. Newspapers described it as one of the safest ships ever built, and passengers were amazed by its size and elegance. For Violet, life on the Olympic was exciting. She served wealthy travelers from many different countries and experienced the glamour of transatlantic travel. But on September 20, 1911, something unexpected happened. The Olympic was sailing near the Isle of Wight when it collided with a British warship called the Hawk. The two ships came dangerously close, and the Hawk's bow struck the side of the Olympic, tearing a large hole in its hull. The impact was terrifying. Passengers felt a violent jolt, and crew members rushed to their emergency stations. Some people feared that the ship might sink. Violet remained calm and helped guide passengers away from dangerous areas. Fortunately, the Olympic stayed afloat and was able to return to port for repairs. For many crew members, the collision was a frightening warning that even the largest ships were not invincible. Violet had survived her first major maritime accident, but she continued working for the White Star Line. Only a few months later, she was transferred to a ship that would become world famous, the Titanic. The Titanic left Southampton on April 10, 1912, on its maiden voyage to New York. It was the largest moving object ever created by humans at that time. The ship contained luxurious dining rooms, grand staircases, a swimming pool, libraries, and elegant cabins for first-class passengers. Newspapers called it a wonder of the modern world. Violet worked as a stewardess in first class. Her job was to assist passengers, keep their cabins in order, and help them during the voyage. Many of the people on board were extremely wealthy, including business leaders, politicians, and famous social figures. The first few days of the journey were pleasant. The Atlantic Ocean was calm, and the passengers enjoyed music, fine food, and social events. Violet later remembered that the atmosphere on board was cheerful and relaxed. On the evening of April 14, 1912, everything changed. Shortly before midnight, the Titanic struck an iceberg. The collision was not a dramatic crash. Many passengers barely noticed it. Some thought the ship had simply stopped. But below the waterline, the iceberg had opened several sections of the hull, and seawater began flooding into the ship. The officers quickly realized that the Titanic was doomed. Crew members were ordered to prepare the lifeboats and wake the passengers. Violet went from cabin to cabin, telling people to put on warm clothes and life jackets. Many passengers did not believe the ship was in serious danger. Some were reluctant to leave the warmth and comfort of the ship for a small lifeboat in the dark ocean. As the situation became more urgent, the order was given, women and children first. Violet helped passengers board the lifeboats and tried to keep them calm. Eventually, an officer told her that she should also get into a lifeboat. As she was about to climb in, the officer placed a baby in her arms and told her to take care of it. Violet sat in lifeboat 16, holding the child while the enormous Titanic slowly sank behind them. The night was freezing, and the ocean was almost completely dark. The survivors could hear cries for help coming from the water after the ship disappeared beneath the surface. More than 1,500 people died that night. Violet survived. For several hours, the lifeboats drifted in the cold Atlantic until the rescue ship Carpathia arrived. The survivors were brought on board, given blankets and hot drinks, and treated for shock. Then something strange happened. A woman rushed toward Violet, took the baby from her arms without saying a word, and disappeared into the crowd. Violet never learned who the woman was, and she never saw the child again. It remained one of the great mysteries of her life. After arriving safely in New York, Violet could have left the sea forever. Many people would never have stepped onto another ship after surviving the Titanic. But Violet was practical and determined. She needed to work, and she refused to live in fear. When World War I began in 1914, the White Star Line's newest ship, the Britannic, was converted into a hospital ship. Instead of carrying luxury passengers, it transported wounded soldiers and medical staff across the Mediterranean Sea. Violet joined the British Red Cross and served as a stewardess on the Britannic. The work was demanding but meaningful. She helped care for injured soldiers and supported the medical teams during long voyages. On the morning of November 21, 1916, the Britannic was sailing through the Aegean Sea near the Greek island of Kea. Suddenly, a powerful explosion shook the ship. The Britannic had struck a German naval mine. Unlike the Titanic, which took nearly 3 hours to sink, the Britannic was sinking rapidly. Water flooded the ship, and the captain ordered the crew to prepare the lifeboats immediately. Some crew members launched lifeboats too early while the ship's giant propellers were still turning beneath the water. The spinning propellers created a powerful suction and pulled several lifeboats toward them, destroying them. Violet realized that staying in her lifeboat was extremely dangerous. She jumped into the sea and tried to swim away from the ship. As she entered the water, she struck her head against the ship's keel. Years later, doctors discovered that she had suffered a skull fracture during the escape. Despite the injury, Violet managed to reach another lifeboat and was pulled aboard. She watched as the Britannic rolled onto its side and disappeared beneath the water. Once again, she had survived a major maritime disaster. By this point, many people considered her unbelievably lucky. She had been on board 3 famous ships during catastrophic accidents and had survived every one of them. After the war, Violet continued working at sea for many years. She traveled around the world, visiting Europe, North America, South America, and other distant places. She experienced storms, mechanical failures, and the many dangers of ocean travel, but nothing ever equaled the disasters of the Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. Friends and colleagues began calling her Miss Unsinkable. Violet accepted the nickname with humor, but she never thought of herself as a hero. She believed she had simply been fortunate and had done her duty during each emergency. In her personal life, Violet was independent and adventurous. She enjoyed traveling, meeting new people, and learning about different cultures. Although she received several marriage proposals, she never built a traditional family life. The sea had become a central part of her identity. In 1938, after decades of service, Violet retired from working on ships. She moved to a quiet village in Suffolk, England, where she enjoyed gardening, reading, and a much more peaceful lifestyle. Later in life, she wrote her memoirs, describing the extraordinary events she had witnessed. Her memories provided historians with valuable details about life on board the Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. Violet Jessop died in 1971 at the age of 83. She had lived a long life after surviving disasters that had killed thousands of other people. So what can we learn from her story? First, we learn that courage is often quiet. Violet was not a famous captain, a military commander, or a powerful politician. She was a working woman who remained calm during terrifying situations and focused on helping others. Second, we learn the importance of resilience. After surviving the Titanic, she could have allowed fear to control the rest of her life. Instead, she returned to the sea and continued doing her job. Third, her story reminds us that history is shaped not only by famous leaders but also by ordinary people who show extraordinary strength when circumstances demand it. Imagine being in her position. Imagine surviving a collision at sea, then surviving the sinking of the Titanic, and then surviving another sinking during a world war. Most people would never experience even one of these events, yet Violet experienced all 3. What is perhaps most remarkable is that she rarely spoke dramatically about her experiences. She did not spend her life seeking attention or fame. She viewed herself as a professional stewardess who had happened to be present during historic events. Historians sometimes debate how much luck was involved in her survival. Certainly, luck played a role. But luck alone cannot explain her calm behavior, her quick decisions, and her ability to keep functioning during emergencies. Her training, discipline, and emotional control were equally important. When the Titanic was sinking, panic spread among many passengers. Violet continued helping people board lifeboats. When the Britannic was going down, she recognized the danger of the propellers and acted quickly to save herself. These were not random actions. They were the actions of someone who could think clearly under pressure. Today, the Titanic remains one of the most famous disasters in history. Millions of people have watched films, read books, and studied the tragedy. Yet relatively few people know the name Violet Jessop. I think she deserves to be remembered, not because she was lucky, but because she demonstrated courage, professionalism, and determination in some of the most dangerous situations imaginable. Her story also gives us a fascinating picture of the early 20th century. Ocean liners were the airplanes of their time. They connected continents, carried immigrants seeking new lives, transported wealthy travelers, and represented the height of modern technology. People believed that human engineering could overcome nature. The disasters of the Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic showed that the ocean was still far more powerful than any ship. Violet lived through this period of rapid change. She saw the optimism before the Titanic, the shock after its sinking, and the chaos of World War I. Through all of it, she continued moving forward. I sometimes wonder what she felt when she looked out at the ocean after surviving all three disasters. Did she feel fear? Did she feel gratitude? Perhaps she felt both. What we do know is that she continued to travel and to live fully, which suggests that she refused to let tragedy define her future. Her life is a powerful reminder that survival is not only about escaping danger. It is also about finding the strength to continue afterward. And that is why Violet Jessop's story remains so inspiring more than 100 years later. She survived the Olympic collision. She survived the Titanic sinking. She survived the Britannic disaster. 3 ships, 3 catastrophes, and one remarkable woman who became known around the world as Miss Unsinkable. If you enjoyed learning English through this true story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to support my work, you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.